It's one of Australia's most historical and valuable buildings. A year or two after the steelworks commenced, back in 1915, the administration of the business was growing and the company realised they needed a new head office. So ultimately they built an administration building. So this building was opened in 1921. A large number of people have spent their lives in this building and worked around here, and you could run into many people in Newcastle and they would tell you stories about things that happened or came out of this administration building. This building was the company's Newcastle headquarters, and it was a place of quite significance and importance to the company. Let's go and have a look at this. Boardroom over here.
This is where we used to have
This was a big time room at the time. John Court had to do a security sweep before all the directors.
Really?
All the whole paraphernalia in this place. You can see the works from out there on the balcony.
Yeah, I remember we used to have our IR meetings in here and with the unions and.
You go down to Kempy's office.
That's right.
See if he's still here.
Wasn't the manager in that room?
Yeah,
that's
right. His
right.
office in here.
Yeah, I spent some more time walking down this floor. That was where the room we went into when they announced the closure.
It's a beautiful building, and I'm happy that it's going to be kept. So this kitchen was built to be the best kitchen there ever was at the time it was built. So every fortnight when people got paid, in the earlier days they paid it all in cash, and they would bring in the vehicles full of money and store all the money in here in the big vault. Wood-solid vault, one of the strongest vaults in the southern hemisphere when it was built. And this vault held the pay for all the employees. It was never ever attempted to be robbed. So all the money was held in here. Until industries come back to this area, I think it has an unknown future, but certainly it will be kept as a building for forever, I think. 100 years since the steelworks opened is an important event for Newcastle. In our discussions over recent years about keeping the history of the steelworks intact, we've had assurances from the state government that above all other places, this building is the one thing that they see as being critical to the future. And I'm very confident that the state government will ensure that this building continues to be used in an appropriate way. In the late 1800s, they discovered silver in a town in Western New South Wales called Broken Hill. So the Broken Hill Proprietary Company was formed to mine silver, lead and zinc. By the early 1900s, they realised that eventually they would run out of material, so they looked at what to do next and thought that using iron ore that they discovered, they could start into the steel industry. So in 1911, the mining company decided to enter the steel industry in Australia and make their first steelworks here at Newcastle. The company actually commenced production during the period of the First World War, and all of the production effort from the works for the first couple of years was to go to the war effort, both in France and here in Australia. Over the first few years, the company grew at an exponential rate and was expanding all the time, to a point where it became certainly the largest steelworks in the Southern Hemisphere and one of the best steel makers in the world in those days. Employing most of the people in the Newcastle region were employed here at the steelworks.
My time at the BHP was amazing. I was going to be an apprentice butcher. Dad came home from the Mad Miners pub in Wickham and said, "You're not going to be an apprentice butcher, you're going to go to work at the BHP like I did, Big Harry's place. You start tomorrow morning at 7:30. The fellowship and the mateship there, I'll never ever lose it. The men and women of steel, they helped build this great country, Australia, and the city we love, Newcastle."
This was a city within a city. There's no doubt that anything that you needed was here or could be acquired here at the steelworks. This place could do anything that was needed to be done in Australia. Many other businesses were used to do things for the steelworks and to provide jobs for people. So the relationship between the company and the community was total and absolute.
At BHP, we trained boilermakers, fitters, electricians, carpenters, tinnies, coppersmiths, blacksmiths, moulders, electricians. The whole lot was trained at the BHP.
So the company realised unless they spent a really large amount of money to modernise and renew the works, that ultimately the works would have to close. So it was in 1997 that the company, in April, that the company announced to Australia, to the world, that in 2 years' time, we're going to cease making steel here at Newcastle.
And what you've got to remember is when the BHP shut, it wasn't only the people that was employed there, it was the people that worked there, the contractors, companies like Brambles, virtually non-existent now, you know, New Pave Civil, E&K Hydraulics, all the little engineering shops they went to because BHP had its feelers out everywhere.
From the time that the company decided that it was going to close the works, it had a major problem on its hands because this is a site that had been operated for 84 years and it was the biggest heavy industrial site in Australia, heavily contaminated with lots of old machinery and equipment, and they were going to have to spend a lot of money to clean this site up. So the company embarked upon a program of trying to find a reuse for the site. To this day, 16 years after the closure, nobody yet has figured out what to do with the steelworks site.
You know, as we walked out on that day, some people came to me and said, it's not really closing Orb, is it? It's about seniority. You'll be opening in a fortnight and you'll get our jobs back. And they had to turn the furnaces off. Some people on the last day still didn't believe it. If my dad was around now, he wouldn't believe it either, because BHP was here forever, 84 years. That's a lifetime.